Hello everyone, this is Sebastian aka X for PokerVIP.com, and today we'll be back with part 2 of my video footage reviewing session for forum member and community member PWLL or Zimmerman60. And yeah, already had the introduction in the part 1, so without further ado, let's jump right into the action and hope we can get into some interesting spots, or rather hope that he gets into some interesting spots. So we did last time find already like a few weird hands, and we did find a few like leaks in terms of pre-flop, I'd say, but nothing like too major, nothing like too huge. So we already looked at those two hands last time. So this was one of the bigger mistakes, that he folds pre-flop here with the 9-8. It's a pretty clear call. So that's where we left off. So here we are now, pretty trivial folds. Pocket jacks, pretty reasonable hand to open. Expecting him to open the queen 5 because I think he's so opened relatively wide, because he's also not opening to 3x, which allows him to open wider, which is fine. Open 6-9 off, that seems pretty. It's fine for me now, I would say. It's not bad. I would start with a small c-bet on the flop and potentially barrel along the way. Yeah, I think one of like the biggest leaks we found were like, I don't think this is like a mistake or like a leak, but I think Hero didn't think too carefully about post-flop sizings. So I would just bet 1/3. He's not going to fold ace high, and you're basically targeting like king highs and queen highs, which fall to 1/3 as well. So might as well bet 1/3. Okay, defending the king 5 seems okay versus the small open. Versus the 3x I would still fold my hand, given rake. Yeah, we get the fold, but we also get the fold for 1/3 then, if he has king high. And we would need to barrel more than once there, because he always calls flop with ace high, and we have to get him off ace high somewhere. So yeah. Few easy folds. As I said in the last video, I would like Hero to try out hotkeys for folding and such, but it's not a big deal. Just like his personal preference for the most part. Okay, everything here seems pretty standard so far. I'm hoping he goes for the 3-bet with ace queen, because he was a bit too shy with 3-betting in the last part. So I would really hope he doesn't just call the min open here, but instead goes for a value 3-bet. That's a pretty interesting spot. I like the trying to go for a 4-bet here. I don't mind it. I don't like that we are deep, because our hand is generally not playing very deep. But it doesn't matter as much if he flats the 4-bets, but it matters a bit. Yeah, I don't mind the 4-bet here. I think it's a good thing to do. I would like to have a read that he's like 3-betting relatively wide, but yeah, I don't mind it. Sizing wise, I would go for 90 seems fine. The last 4-bet Hero did was already a bit too big, and I think this one will also be a bit too big. We're a bit deeper, so we can size up, so it's not incredibly too big, but it's a tad too big. But it's not bad. He opens, I guess we defend. We could 3-bet our hands. Just gonna fold turn. It seems fine to fold turn there for sure. There, our gotcha is not really good, and our pair is not really good, and don't really have great implied odds. Like to take it down with the flat here would be a tad too wide. I don't mind flatting jack 10 suited here. I don't mind flatting 10-9 suited here. But with the jack 9, I mean, versus a fish, I wouldn't mind if you flat here. I would generally fold the stand still, but I don't think a flat is like outrageous. So I don't mind that you hovered over the flat there. I guess for min we could defend the king 8 off, but we could also just ditch it. It's going to be such a marginal defend. Can just pass on it. Rake is really hurting those marginal type of spots. King queen. Going to be played one way or another probably. I suppose we're going to open the jack 7 since we min open. Seems reasonable. Easy defend with the king queen. Nothing to say there. Easy fold on the other table. Relatively good flop. Sure, we could be beat, but we could also not be beat. And he's gonna also frequently see with this board. Easy call, never raising. You should not snap call, you should always tank a bit longer here. That was like another criticism we had. Just tank a bit longer to... Basically you're giving away timing tells, and if villains are like they might not even like consciously recognize the timing tell, but subconsciously they will recognize that like your hand is probably not pocket jacks here, right? So it's a bit of a thing. And if you barrel its turn, we can fold our hand. Basically, he could bluff, but I don't think the sizing is really bluffy. I think if he would bluff here, we'd probably just jam it in with like ace queen with the ace of hearts. And basically, I think he just way too often now has a better hand. And if he doesn't have a better hand, he has a lot of equity. Anyways, and if he has a better hand, we are like pretty stone dead, pretty much. And yeah, we'll just fold there. Yep. Also don't think this is like really close in practice. Yes, he could be betting king 10 or king queen sometimes, and that kind of sucks. But that's like the best we can really hope. I would fold the king queen. It's not a shame to fold here. This was also 3-ways on the flop, which makes his ranges generally stronger. I like starting to bet the king 10 here. Good fold with the king queen. Good discipline there. Lots of players would just stubbornly call there. I would check back to king 10 and then probably bluff some rivers. Yeah, I would bluff this river. I'm not sure if I would overbet or if I would bet 50. I would either bet 50 or 70, something along those lines. If he might lead, then we have an easy fold, obviously. Easy fold, probably just check the flop with like a reasonably good hand, I would assume. On that texture, it's not that unreasonable, and even like weaker players might find out that they have to check such a like pretty connected and bad texture. So overall, I'm definitely seeing some really good tendencies from Hero. Yeah. 10-9. I would like to see. I mean, if he opens up on a flat or 3-bet, I don't usually prefer either option. Easy fold with the queen 8. Nice, good job. Lots of players would come along there. You don't. That's good. This is a board we would want to check back a reasonable chunk of our range on. That being, like in theory, that being said, in practice I would just bet our hand because our hand just fits so nicely in the betting range. Can get value, can get protection. Even if it gets check raised, which is like the worst case, we can still peel. Which, okay, we get led into small. This is like weird. I think our hand is not strong enough. I mean, I don't think we're beat. I think he usually has a worse hand, but I would, if I want to raise a 10 here, I would usually take a 10 with a better kicker to then dominate his 10x's. So I would just flat this. And raise in like ace 10, king 10. Easy call with the 9s. Once again, tank a bit before you call. Easy call on the flop. I mean, just what he does here, just calls. That's pretty good. I wouldn't hate a raise with the 10-9, but I think a call is better. On the turn, we have somewhat of a decision with the 10-9. I think we can either now like bet 15 or just check back. I think both are reasonable. Pick up an open ender, probably have to call turn once again. Just think about the odds. We have like 10 outs as aces, which is like 21 or 22%. So if he bets like half pot, we have a kind of mandatory call. On the river, I don't think we're beat. I don't think he's gonna bluff a lot though if we check. I think it's just gonna go check a lot when we win. I don't think our hand generally value bets here. Because I also don't think he's gonna hero call ace highs on this texture, so I would just still check fold river. Wouldn't hate a value bet, but yeah. 10-9, I don't mind either option, small bet or check. I think our hero is gonna check here, which is fine. On this river, if he bets tiny, I'm like kind of confused. I might just station like a really bad small bet. Okay, checking, easy check down. This is... So here's the thing, you didn't value bet turn, but now you start to value bet river on a card where it's like less likely worse hands call you, and it's more likely you are beat. Even though, granted, I agree, once he checks, we are not beat that often. Totally agree with that. That being said, I don't get why you wouldn't bet turn, but then want to bet river. Why then not bet turn, right? I don't think that's like consistent logic. And once again, also, if you're really going to bet like 22 here, this would be like way too massive. You're targeting a 6 or 7 or like pocket 8s. You would have to bet like really small here, which I don't hate betting like 10 cents here, but I would kind of not like betting 22 here. Yeah, I prefer check back. So if you check back, guys. The pocket 9s, it's an interesting thing to maybe check raise to river as a bluff. But then it's a question like, if you check back turn with like aces or kings, is he then going to fold to the checkers on river? Which honestly at 500 people probably don't. So probably just check folding river, and as expected goes check check over win. Oh, if you size 12, I don't hate the value bet. I think that's reasonable, but once again, think about the logic why you check back turn, but then value bet river. Like on the turn you can, yeah, it's like way more likely that you're gonna get value than on river. So why not bet turn then? And like your hand has like the good quality that if it gets check raised on the turn, if you value bet, you can just call. So there's no danger in that. So yeah, I don't hate this value bet though. I think it's okay. I don't think you're beat that often. I still would prefer to check the river, but I don't hate this. I think it's okay, but it's obviously really huge here. I would just check it. I mean, he just folds like snap. It's usually it's gonna probably happen there quite a bit. But I don't hate the value bet on river. Just think about why you didn't bet turn, but then bet river. Okay. Honestly, I would fold the a6 here. The a6 plays extremely poorly. It has extremely shit playability and equity realization. And even if you flop an ace, if a lot of money goes in, you are pretty fucked. So yes, I would fold this a6 offsuited, and I feel pretty happy about it. I don't hate your defend. It's like, in terms of like standard thingies, this would be a pretty standard defend, but given rake is pretty high at the micro, so we can definitely ditch this hand. Being out of position, having hand has almost no real playability, we can just ditch this hand. It's like one of the worst ace-x. It probably is the worst ace-x you can defend here, so I would just ditch it. And on the flop I would go for check raise. King jack I would check back. Without a club. With a club I would see. I don't hate a small c-bet, but I would overbet this turn for about 35. Expecting a fold 95% of the time. Or a lot. 90%, let's say. I don't mind going smaller, but I would just overbet it. He's so capped and yeah. We just want to take the pot down on the turn. We don't want to necessarily double barrel, but we have to double barrel if we barrel down. On this river we can consider to either take our showdown, which we do have some, or we could consider to bet about 35 to get him off ace size. I don't think a small bet's gonna achieve that. But I think if you want to bluff, you will have to bluff massively. And I would kind of like that. You did this before. And I'm really curious, are you actually value betting the king higher? Because that seems way too thin. Yes, he didn't lead to turn, which kind of reduces his ace size, but not really. He can easily have an ace high, and it's not going to fold for a half pot bet. I hope you're not assuming he folds ace high for half pot here, because that would be kind of crazy. And then what are you trying to get called by queen jack? That seems really ambitious. So I really don't get this bet. If you want to bluff, you have to bluff bigger, because he's not going to fold ace high for that sizing. And if he doesn't have ace high, you have the best hand, basically, right? I mean, he's obviously not going to fold a pair either. And for value, this just seems incredibly too thin. Just get a snap for probably just at the best hand, vast majority of the time. He's not going to fold ace side of half pot. I don't know if you assume he's folding ace side or if you're actually value betting. I would tend to believe that you just hope to get him off ace high. But honestly, if you want to get him off ace high, you have to bet bigger there. And if you overbet there, he's probably going to fold around 90% of the time. So just do it. The ace 5 we can probably just c-bet. We can check raise, we can overbet flop, we can do a lot of things with the ace 5 of hearts. Hoping to see a 3-bet with the ace queen. I would code 4-bet this hand. This hand plays better multi-way. This hand plays better deep, I mean. We are deep. I don't like a cold call. I don't hate a cold call. I don't hate it. I don't think it's massively bad, but I think it's kind of bad. And I would just code 4-bet here, and I would code 4-bet to about, let me think, that would be $1, about 120. Yeah, 110 to 120, 115, something like that, 120 probably. Yeah, I don't like the cold call. You're not like crushed versus his range, but why not just take this really profitable cold 4-bet spot? He's gonna react really nitty towards it. And yeah, we have like the best blockers. And I don't hate it because you like folding. I think your hand is kind of too good to fold, but cold calling being out of position to both players and not closing the action just isn't appealing to me, so I'll just cold fold it. I think it's the best option by a decent clip. But as I said, I don't hate it. We turn a gin. That's the nuts. I don't like 130. I think this guy still has worse queen X's in his range, and this guy has still 10s and 9s in his range, so we would want to target those. And to target those, we would want to bet, like, I don't know, 60 or 70 cents. I don't like the 130. I don't think it does anything. I think if he... I also don't like a check or like a lead here. I don't think this will get bet a lot. Yeah, I don't think this will get bet a lot. It will get bet sometimes, but I don't think it's gonna get bet a ton. He bets 1/3 now. Our hand is almost strong enough to just raise here. Like, honestly, I'm not afraid of being beat here versus him. I don't obviously mind the call, but I would definitely strongly consider to actually raise here. Yeah, he just had the best hand. He probably just had ace king or something. I would have led turn and led river. And I would have led turn bigger than 1/3. Because the range you're targeting is calling more than 1/3. Just gonna check. I would just check down the king jack, no equity going whatsoever. Unblocking good hands. Yeah, I was gonna have a ton of continues on this flop. That being said, I don't hate. If we're gonna c-bet, I like a small c-bet. I like a flat here, yes, because he's short, he's official, we do want to play the pot. Yeah, I would flat here, for sure. I would not c-bet here, I would just flat. We also have efficient small blind. Yeah, good flat, good job. Didn't go for it. I would have liked a flat there. At least if you considered it. Yeah, you can open the ace-9, you can fold it. It's like right on the border. That's not going to be a huge deal either way. Now we have a pretty easy c-bet. Probably c-bet around half fold. Seems fine. I would value bet this turn, roughly around 25 cents. Seems fine. And I might value bet river, depending on what river comes. Not on this one. Well played. Decently standard hand so far. Oh, 4x open when we have kings, that's good. Always 3-betting. 60. Seems good. Always c-betting this hand. Shoving the money in. Queen of spades will be a value bet on the turn. Yep. Ace 10. Well, we're blocking his king out, so that's good. Obviously a fish, this guy. No, I wouldn't check this river. I don't see a point to basically, I don't think he has a lot of boats. I mean, kings and 9s do bet pre usually. 5s is one combination, and then like 9-5 and king-5 are not really huge parts of range. Yes, he could have the ace of spades, but if our plan is to check call, we're gonna lose as 3 anyways as the ace of spades, and I still want to extract value from like all the lower spades, which he has way more than a lot. Like he has a lot of lower spades, so I would just bet like I don't know 40 cents, and as played I would never fold. But I expect to be beat reasonably. And he even look at that check, and he still value bets worse. Kind of showcases that he's not going to fold his hand, right? He thinks his hand is strong enough to value bet the river there, so he's obviously not going to fold if you bet. And that's what I mean. But you give those hands a chance to check back, which I would assume they usually do. And that's not what you want if you have a better hand. I'm not going to fold the 8-6, and I wouldn't fold the 8-6 versus a new TG open. defending 8-6 is better than defending king 10 offsuited, for example, just given the 8-6 is less dominated. Would defend it versus UTG open. 10-8, gonna call the 3-bet. I think we can pretty comfortably call there, given positions, given sizing, given strength of our hands, playability of our hands rather. Ace 9, I don't mind either of the 3 options here. I think all are fine. With the Ace King, I usually prefer to just let given stack depth. Easy call with the Ace 9. Gonna fold turn. Flop with the Ace King, we can go either way. We can check back or we can 1/3. I think those are 2 options. Gonna fold the Ace 9 on the turn. Pretty dynamic turn. Jack 10 gets there. His 9-8, if they bet flop, get there. I don't know. I just don't see too many things that still want to bluff here, especially for the half-pot sizing, and I don't see too much worse value bets, so just ditch the Ace 9 and don't mind that option of Ace King. It's really weird that you call the Ace 9 here and you folded the 10-9 at like the start of the video, where you had like where you had way more bluffs on in the 10-9, and you had an additional gut shot which was pretty good. So that's like kind of weird. He now randomly bets turn. That makes close to no sense. Probably would call once then. Ace King. And now we check down, and we do beat Queen Jack, which bet because it had the spade. Probably trying to fire off on the river with the spade, or if the spade hits. Yeah, I don't get why you fold the 10-9 in the one hand, where you're like, where like we can find substantially more combinations of bluffs, but you call the Ace 9 here, and you have more equity versus value range in the other hand in the 10-9. And you even snap folded that, but you called here pretty confidently. I don't get the logic behind that, and I would have folded turn. Yes, he this time had the like. It's basically like this. We don't have a lot of ways to improve if we are beat, and we are beat too often here. Just combination-wise, he has too many combinations that just beat us now, and not a lot of combinations that can still bluff turn. And even his hand might not double barrel here. This is like a non-standard thing for population to do, to double barrel even this hand, because population generally would just shut down with having so little equity. So yeah, it's always about equity versus like their value hands, and then like how likely is it to bluff. And on that texture, not a ton of bluffs we can find. Yes, we can find some, and yes, we're gonna be good. We're gonna fold the best hand there sometimes on the turn, but generally, yeah, not good enough to call that. Ace King, as I said, I would peel once. I don't hate it if you just fold. Yeah, I like peeling once. I don't mind if you fold. It's okay. I think the problem is I think he can definitely like step there with like some random hands, like just trying to step once there and then be done with it. But he also could have checked value on the flop. But I do think he quite often just steps like random hand on the turn. So I would be inclined to call once there, because I also think he's going to give up the river a lot then. But I don't hate folding. But yeah, I think we should have called once there. It's kind of weird that you like call the Ace 9, which is like a spot where you're like way more often beat, because he had an MP range. No, it was a cutoff range. He had a cutoff range, c-bets flop and c-bets turn, right? Has a plenty of value combinations you can think of, and not a ton of bluffs. While in the Ace King, he basically grabs no value, because we don't assume he's going to check his like pocket queens on the flop, right? But then you fold that, where like in the one spot he grabs a ton of value, not a lot of bluffs. While in the other hand, he grabs no value and we fold. And we obviously beat all bluffs with the Ace King. So that's like kind of inconsistent. Like I would wager that like in the Ace King hand, we are way more often good than like in the Ace 9 hands. I hope that logic makes sense for you. Just given action, it's always given action, given vortex, just given positions, like a lot of things to take into account. Probably would see with the King 7 here, given backdoors. Yeah, I like that. Hopefully we don't fold the 6-7 suited, because that would break my heart. Because we did fold the 6-8 suited before. But you can see that. You have 3-betting it? I don't hate it. It's okay. Yeah, I like the flat. I would check raise the flop. I would obviously defend the 9s. No, what? No, wait. How do... We had literally the same spot with the 9s before and we defended. Yeah, I think the pocket 9s there has to be a defend there. Just too much implied if we hit the set and just too strong a hand basically. And yeah, I would have check raised the flop once it was check. Yeah, I don't mind check raising or stabbing. I probably would prefer to lead for like 20. But yeah, I think 9s is way too tight of a fold pre-flop. Not way too tight. I could get on board with like folding 7s in the spots where you had pocket 9 just now. Folding 6s is pretty standard given like we're out of position. The pocket 9 just not gonna fold that hand. Oh, that's an interesting river. I'm tempted to go for a check raise. I don't think pocket jacks or 10s are gonna bet on the river anyways. If we would want to target an ace, I don't think an ace is gonna raise us here, so we should bet around $1 if we target an ace, or we just check raise versus an ace. And I really actually like check raising. I don't think he checks back an ace, and I think we can get a check raise in versus most players. And if you bet like under, like if you don't overpot it here for value, that's gonna be massively missing value. Yeah, that's massively missing value. He's not gonna fold his ace, so just bet $1. Honestly, you could probably even bet 120 and he's probably gonna station you. Honestly, you could probably even check jam. I had a spot like this earlier, at like I think it was 25 now. I just check jammed and he snap got me for his entire stack with his ace. So yeah. And if he has pocket jacks, he's gonna fold regardless of his sizing, so definitely a spot I would overbet. I would probably at least 1.5 export it, and I would probably actually check shove it. Well, yeah, check shove. And if he ever has the rare 6, that's like obviously never gonna fold. He would lose 4 binds there with the 6. If he ever has like pocket 6s. So that's also a thing. Yeah, and I don't think people check back an ace there once we check. I mean, they do it like a non-zero frequency, but it's not a common thing. So definitely missed some potential value there. I don't mind c-betting the pocket jacks here. That's fine. What, the king jack we just folded? I would open that in an MP every time. I mean, I'm even opening at UTG. You don't have to open at UTG, but I think it's quite, man, like, you definitely want to open it from MP. Pocket 5s, I would, we are pretty deep with both guys. I would actually set mine here. Just because we're deep. If we're 100 blinds deep, I'm happily folding 5s. Give it stack up, I would set mine. Not sure if you do set mine because of the stack depth or if you just do it anyways. If you did it because of the being deeper part, that's really good. I wouldn't lead turn here. Yeah, just check. Seems fine. Might turn our hand into a bluff on some brick rivers. Easy fold. So you fold the 10s there as well. Okay, yeah, we're definitely overfolding to 3-bets. Like you folded the 9s before, now you fold the 10s. It's definitely cool. Yes, the squeeze range is incredibly strong. Definitely, the squeezing range is incredibly strong, yeah. But that's the thing. Your implied odds are huge. If you hit a set there, you're gonna stack them so often. It's insane. Also, pocket 10s have like other qualities than pocket 2s because they quite often connect with like some Jack 9 8 boards as well. And generally pocket 10s just has more equity versus range. And yeah, just your raw set value. Because the small range will also come along decently often and you're gonna have a multi-way pot with a really great set maker. Just your raw set value is enough to call there. I wouldn't call like deuces to like 6s there, but I would definitely call like 8s, 9s, and 10s, jacks, and queens, and 7s is close, but 10s is really not that close. That's the mandatory defend. So we've definitely seen some leaks in terms of like defending versus like some opens and defending versus let me rephrase that. Defending versus 3-bets generally, like we're definitely overfolding versus 3-bets, and especially there we are in position as well. That's a no-no. So we're definitely overfolding versus 3-bets, yeah. Pretty loose isolate on the right, but I don't hate it. C-betting here for 1/3 on the right. I think you should c-bet the 1/3 more often. I don't hate the half pot, but I prefer the... Yeah, I would fold you the ace-4. That's good. I don't hate the half pot of the jack-7, but I would prefer 1/3. Not folding to a min 3-bet. Nope. Yep, definitely over folding to 3-bet. Like, he's min 3-betting us. Like, or not, I mean, I guess it's basically min. We get just way too good of the price there with any hand. I would not fold any hand I open there. Let me put it like this. Literally not folding any hand versus the basically min 3-bet. Literally not folding a single hand. We're in position. He's more than likely a fish. And we get a best price ever. It was kind of weird. We did open 7-8, but now we didn't open 10-8. So maybe it was because of the play on the BB, but maybe that's also like just like an inconsistency. Gotta watch out for that. Can just fold to King Jack. If you want to get really if you want to get really ambitious, you could call 4-bet there, but that would require some pretty solid reads. Yeah, definitely. Like that's the biggest league I've found so far. It's like overfolding to 3-bets. The other one was like sizing's post-up seemed a bit all over the place and not like actually like making your sizing to target, like making your sizing in a way where it's logical versus the range we target basically. 3-betting the ace-10 I think is even somewhat mandatory here. But Hero has been under 3-betting, so let's hope he 3-bets this spot. And with the ace-3 we are basically, I don't know, hoping that someone cold calls and then we can, I guess, swoop in. I don't want to see a snap fold here. I don't hate a flat, but I think you're too shy with your 3-bets and you're like flatting too many small blinds. You should 3-bet here and you shouldn't flat. That's a fold with the ace-3, that's correct. That's not an overfold. 7-3 suited versus a short stacker for 3x out fold. That seems good. Pocket jacks I would 3-bet every time. And I would cold 4-bet and fold this. People assume you can't cold 4-bet and then fold. That's a misconception. That's definitely not true. You can definitely cold 4-bet and then fold. You usually get around 39% facing a 5-bet after you did cold 4-bet. You wouldn't have 39% equity versus the 39% equity versus the range you would jam with, so you can easily cold 4-bet and fold. Your hand is still really strong. You generally don't want to go for cold call here, even though I think this is like one of the rare spots where cold calling is somewhat okay. I would like a cold call more than a fold, but I would prefer just a cold 4-bet. You're still pushing equity versus the 3-betting range, depending on villain of course, but generally. And you're just gonna look so incredibly strong and you're just gonna take it down pre-flop so often. So I would cold 4-bet into fold this here. And I would never fold my hand here. Not because I think jacks is such a powerful hand, but I just think it's like still strong enough. Yeah, I wouldn't fold here. I think the fold is a reasonably sized mistake there. Just, yeah, we are, I don't mind being tight pre-flop, but I think we are too paranoid pre-flop basically. Like pocket jacks, even if he's 3-betting like somewhat conservatively, is still ahead of his range. Like we're ahead of a 10% range. We're ahead of an 8% range. We are ahead of a 6% range. Like this 5%. We're like flipping versus a 5% range. If he's like his cutoff, it's small blind versus cutoff. He's probably gonna 3-bet more than 5%, and even if he's only 3-betting 5%, we're still flipping versus that range, just to illustrate the point that that's the type of a fold. I would cold 4-bet because I generally don't like cold calling. I think our ranges are way too face up and too easy to play against. and our hand is not doing fantastically in the multi-way spot, which will happen a lot because cutoff will get a good price in closed action, being in position to both of us. So given those facts, I would call forward my hands and fold to a jam. So we then generally seem to be a bit like, we are like raising a lot of hands. It's kind of good, but like in terms of like facing 3-bets, we are definitely too tight. For example, you could probably swoop in for a call of 8-6, but folding this one is totally okay. That's not a problem, right? That's not an overfold, but just saying like this is like a close spot. But then we open the 6-5 suited UTG, which like this is way closer of a spot than like folding the 10s to the squeeze before is like decently plus EV spot, while this is like probably losing a slightly bit. So folding the deuces UTG is definitely fine. Like even this is close. No, I hate the 4-bet here, just given blockers. We unblock good hands and we block bad hands. If he like we block ace-5 suited, I don't like 4-bet here at all. Really dislike the 4-bet here. Like it's kind of like weird because you have been like you just literally folded the pocket jacks a few hands before, given a way weaker 3-bet range. Look at the other spot. It was a cutoff open in a small blind 3-bet range. That's way wider than a button versus UTG 3-bet range. You did 4-bet in the other spot where you were in position to him. So if he calls your 4-bet, you're going to be in position. And it appears way stronger because it's a called 4-bet. And he's going to face it out of position, so you're going to just get way more folds. So now you're taking a range that's considerably way stronger, button versus UTG, than cutoff versus small blind. You're 4-betting a way weaker hand that has way less equity versus range. So we just went through it, and like versus we said there's a 10% range, pocket jacks is pushing 57% equity. Let's see what 6-5 suited is pushing versus the same range. Well, 33% equity. You're like taking it and literally has like 20 to 25% less equity versus like, right? And his range is going to be more narrow in this spot. So yeah, plus your blockers are extremely bad. You're unblocking all the good hands and you're like blocking trash hands. So this is like decently spewy, and it has no logical consistency to the pocket Jackson from before. I hope you don't mind just me being like pretty direct about it, but I'm just trying to really point out why it's not really making any sense to do this and then snap fold the pocket jacks before. Okay. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to be as clear as possible, so yeah. Not trying to sugarcoat it, I just think there's no sense behind it. Guess I don't have to pound on the point anymore. Yeah, and now like a really low equity hand post flop. You're gonna fold. That's fine. But it just seems kind of like random and all over the place. Sure, you might have a HUD running and I'm not seeing the HUD. But I would never 4-bet the 6-5 there. But besides the point, yeah, it just seems like more of like you're doing it in the moment because you feel like doing it, not because it's actually like incentivized or like logical. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but maybe not. I would see with a 30 of the pocket 7s. Our hand needs protection, and I do want to see 2 streets instead of 1. Easy call versus the min bet. No reason to raise. Easy fold on the river, even if you min bets. Easy check down. Yes. Betting ace-5 here is whatever. And I would value bet the river. Seems reasonable. Sizing seems reasonable. Value bet seems reasonable. Pocket 10 seems pretty unreasonably played by him, but I like your line. Definitely betting the jacks, and if the short stacking fish 3-bets us on the flop, or rather raises us on the flop, we're gonna get the money in. And I'm gonna bet the turn pretty big. Would bet bigger. But I like your general decision of going big. Yep, I like going big. And I'm still value jamming some rivers. That's not gonna be one of them. too hard to get called by worse. Some hands improve. No, that's too thin. I'm not gonna say we're never gonna get called here by worse, because he could definitely call us with some 10x's. But I think our sizing once again is not really made to target a 10, because if we want to target a 10, we should probably bet more like 50. And then flushes get there, ace 6 get there, ace 10 gets there. And like, yeah. Just like if you want to target weaker hands, I would make it smaller. I wouldn't be shocked if he calls us here with king 10. I'm gonna say that now. But I think it's too thin. I think you should check down in first place. And if you want to value bet, you should value bet smaller. It's one of the worst rivers to value bet your hand on, by the way. Yeah, just get the snap fold. That's the problem. That's way too thin. The check 10 for 3x is close-ish. I would defend it. I would check raise this flop. Given we have these backdoors, given he's probably going to overly c-bet his flop. We should definitely try to implement some check raises on the flop as well. That would have been a reasonable candidate. Defending the ace 9, could throw in a 3-bet, but generally calling. Lots of pretty standard pre-flop situations right now. Would c-bet the pocket sixes for about 1/3. Protection is a big issue. Would call turn. Wouldn't snap call, would always tank a bit. And on river, if he checks, we fold. And if he would check that river, I would be tempted to just shove it into his face or like 3x pot it. But yeah, as played, we fold. But if he checks, I don't think he's ever protected enough to call it jam there, so I might just jam it exploitatively because I don't think he has a calling range. 3-bet and isolate. Seems standard. So far so good. Get cold called, that's gonna happen a lot at the low stakes. Flop we can really go either way. I would probably c-bet 1/3 on both textures. I don't hate sizing up to top right. I would still 1/3 it to induce spazzes and to widen his calling range. I don't hate a check with ace king, I would still 1/3 it though. And on this turn I would, even though we pick up a gutshot, I would still check. I don't expect to fold out better hands a lot, and they definitely have a reasonable amount of check calls here. And we just want to realize our equity without facing like a really ugly check raise here. And I basically just think you're not going to get a better hand to fold enough of the time. And you quite often still have the best hand there, which you kind of see by them literally snap folding. They probably didn't just fold a pair, they probably just had a worse hand. And by the way, we do dominate all of those worse hands. Or like, you dominate the ace highs basically. That's what I wanted to say. So, if it would be heads up, I would be, I guess, a bit more inclined to barrel the ace king, but being 3-ways, I would just check and realize my equity, and you have decent showdown value. I don't hate the flat with ace queen, I would generally 3-bet you, but I think it's okay. Okay, I like a c-bet here, and I like a c-bet, or like a bet on the right. I don't really like the sizing, but that's okay. And I don't expect this 9 to give us a lot of fold equity, since all his like jack 10s are calling IMO, so I like the decision to check. And we might lead overbet some rivers. We should at least. So once he checks back here, he usually doesn't have shit. Never calling here. Even though he could have a worse hand like ace jack, never calling. Wouldn't hate a 3-bet there, but generally calling my hand. Gonna go through those hands and then gonna call it a session at about 45 minutes. Let me take a look back at that hand. I think we called flop and folded turn. That seems pretty reasonable. Yeah. Let's take a look at the ace king and folding a jack 7. Pretty bad board. Just gonna check down my ace king. Seems really good. Easy fold. Okay. So that's basically it for the review session of PWLL. I hope you got a lot out of it. I tried to go decently in depth about the spots. If you have any further questions about them or want to add why you did certain things, if you had like certain reads, go ahead, tell me in the comments or via like a personal message. And I think the major topics were you're definitely overfolding to 3-bets. You are doing some things that just don't make any logical sense, which I did point a few out. I hope you can, yeah, I hope you're gonna get a lot out of that. Then there's like some pre-flop sizing mistakes when 4-betting. Some post-flop sizings were a bit over the place. Some value bets were like way too thin. Some bets really didn't make sense, like betting king high when ace high is not folding and worse is not calling. That happened twice. And generally, like the sizings were like, you didn't, basically I don't think you actually explicitly thought about what's gonna call me here. And you didn't tailor the sizing to what's gonna call you. And you should exploitatively always do that. Think about range that's gonna call you, or that's the most likely range it's gonna call you. And then think about what sizing those hands would call. I don't think you did that in those spots. Was anything else of note? I guess I said the things in time in the video. If you have any further questions, as said, go ahead, ask me. And for all the other guys watching, any questions, always feel free to ask them. And yeah, that's basically it, I guess. Hope you're gonna enjoy it. And have a great day and have great success in your sessions. Peace.